managing our design team. Oh, thanks.
Sorry about that.
No worries. I could start over. Hi, everyone. I'm Orlin. I'm excited to be here. I've been at McAfee for 11 years. I started as a visual designer, starting at our doing our mobile product when it was new, and then transitioned into management recently. So I manage a team of designers that spans across the globe for our mobile product. Sunny, back to you.
Cool, thank you. And I am Sunny Chen. I have been in the design industry for 16 plus years. I've been at McAfee for 11 months. And then I manage our CrossOS team. So any endpoints and platforms that our designers work on, from mobile to desktop to web, I go ahead and help assist in creating a constant look and feel for all of our products. So with that in mind, real quickly, we'd like to thank you for having us here and speaking and allowing us to speak to you. Orla and I were actually talking how we wish we'd have organizations like this when we were younger and early on with our design careers, just because we didn't have that. And we were just kind of like roaming through the dark, trying to figure out what was going on. Very special thank you for Stephen for inviting us here. He was actually working under my team for a bit and saw the madness that went through when he was working at McAfee. And a very special thank you to Serena for helping us organize this and not making us look foolish unless we do it on our own. So there you go. All right, so real quick. Within my 16 plus years, I have been very fortunate to work on many different industries, all the way from video games and entertainment to mobile payments and transactions, as well as mobile ads, cloud computing, and as well as virtual software. Now, the big thing that came along within all of these industries is basically knowing your user. And the idea is trying to figure out what the user's wants and needs were, why they want to use your product, as well as what is it that they actually want out of your product. The difference since I started working at McAfee is that within not only knowing what users wanted, we kind of had to basically be able to educate and teach them as well. We're working on a product that there's a lot of technical knowledge that we kind of have to break down for easy components for our end users to understand and understand why safety is important for them, as well as trying to show them that this is the way that they should be utilizing our product and that we give them the best value for their money in terms of what they are trying to get out of protection. With that in mind, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about personas and our users and some of the areas that they fall into based off of the feedback we've gotten from our wonderful research team. So as we begin, the novice is usually the general person that kind of starts in with technology. They don't really understand much about it. They don't really understand security, what its need is, often overwhelmed about what they have to do online at times. The typical kind of person where you're trying to help troubleshoot things and be like, press the button. And they're like, what button? And it's like, the only button on the screen, press that, install, go through the process. These are the type of individuals that just, don't really know much, not too tech savvy, but use technology on a regular basis. The anxious person is the one that's kind of like, okay, I want to be able, I know that there's threats out there. There are some type of concerns. I'm not really sure how to go ahead and protect myself, but I do know I need protection and the world is out to get me. These are the people that kind of like a little bit on the edge, don't really understand what's going on, but are willing to be open and learning and get guidance from people like us. The caregiver is one that I kind of fall into this category. I watch over all the IT and tech support for my family, including my wife and kids. Want to make sure all of our accounts are locked down, no passwords are being shared out and things that we don't need to, as well as making sure that anything that we do have that's shared out via shared accounts is taken care of and we don't have any additional intruders. While I do understand that there are threats out there, I'm the main source of contact in order to defend the family for that. So. The resigned is the person that's kind of like, I know it's out there, just help me fix it. Like, I really don't know all the details about it. I don't really want to know all the details. Just make sure that I'm not getting hacked, that I have access to all my information, and that I'm able to go ahead and just run a scan or basically take care of it very quickly. I want to get on with my life, do my online shopping, my social media, my chats, whatever. And then you have the rebel. So this is the person that's like really just wants to have total control. They know about registry hacks for Windows. They know about going into kernels and doing sudo commands in their Mac OS and just basically saying, I know what's out there. I know what the problems are, but you know what? I'm an expert at it. I can work with you. Just show me what I need to do or what you guys can give me. And then I'll go ahead, install it, run it myself. So taking all of those personas into consideration, there is a bit of a story time here. Now, the names have not been changed because you won't know her, but this was a real life event that actually occurred. So I wanted to share this story with you. So Judy was using her computer one day when all of a sudden she received a pop-up. And then within the pop-up, it says your PC is infected. Please scan right now. We'll go ahead and make sure that your computer is okay. Unknowingly and not being too tech savvy, she went ahead and downloaded the application and ran it. Next thing she knows, her computer and keyboard are locked out. She basically has no access to doing anything. She's beginning to freak out, wondering what's wrong. Did she do the install incorrectly? What's happening here? She gets a message, pops up. We have control of your computer. Pay us $400 if you ever want your information and data back. Now, being a later millennial, she had to go to the one place on her phone where she knew she should probably get the best advice from everyone that she knew. And she posted the entire story on Facebook. So with that in mind, you can kind of imagine what the reactions were coming out to be like. As nice as your family and friends are about you, they're going to go ahead and judge you, especially when you post something like this. So some of the responses, as you can see, were, girl, no, you got scammed, which is basically honest, and you done messed up. So true story, all of these came through. I just kind of shook my head when I saw the whole situation play out. Unfortunately, in the end, Judy decided that it wasn't worth the $400 for the information that she had on the laptop, and she basically just got rid of the machine, never touching it again and bowing off security and so bowing off basically clicking on anything and downloading it ever again. So within that context and thinking, you can see how she kind of fits into the novice mindset. And then from there, it's a situation of, I don't really know what's going on. I did something because of a pop-up. I think I got tricked. What you're seeing on the screen right now on the left is basically the categories of what we were able to identify with our end users through the research, how they perceive protection, what the value is, their awareness of their digital life, their level of tech savviness, and their approach to protection. And then on that, you can see the broad spectrum between back and forth of where these individuals land. So as you can see, Judy was unprotected. She forgoed her convenience instead of her security. She was unaware of what was actually occurring. She was a novice user, very passive on the idea of what protection is. The anxious user, the person kind of is aware of all of these things, but not too tech savvy. They can see, they know they're probably unprotected at the time. They still value their convenience, or they're actually, sorry, they're more paranoid about their, their security and what's happening there. They're pretty aware in terms of what's going on, latest news in the technology and whatnot. Mediocre with tech savvy, as we mentioned, and their approach to protection is they want to be active. They're not particularly sure how. Caregiver, of course, you know, at most times they should be protected, or at least they know, at least if they're me at least. They understand the value of their protection and their personal data. Their awareness is pretty good, but I'll be honest with you, there are times my kids come up to me and say, Daddy, I want to download this game. And because I'm busy, I don't actually look where they're downloading it from. So that's my weak point in terms of this ability here. Tech savviness is pretty awesome there in terms of knowing exactly what's going on. And then approach protection is we're pretty active, trying to make sure the family information is secure. The resigned, middle of the road type of person, average consumer. I kind of understand what's going on, but I really just want to use my apps and make things work, no problem. I know that there's problems in there and I have a digital life that I need to take care of, but for now, I just like to do what I do, being on my UB2Bs, my Tiki-Takis, and my Facebookies. And then just trying to get to have a passive approach to what your protection is. And then on the far right of the spectrum is the rebel, the one that's like, I can do this, I got this. I'm only buying this just because I want another layer of defense, but I'm pretty much locked down on this one. So within that, we kind of have to approach as we design the products and what is the way that we can make people feel secure and what are the things that they feel valuable to the product. And while there are times where individuals like Judy would feel vulnerable about what happened to her, the solution that we have to provide needs to be easy for them to adopt, and they have to believe that the solution works. And within this Venn diagram, you can see we need to hit that middle point of understanding how are we selling ourselves as a protection company to these individuals. So within our industry, there are really two main ways that people are trying to approach this. One is kind of a threat proposal where they say, you're going to get hacked. It's not a matter of how, it's a matter of when you're going to get hacked, and when you do, it's going to be bad. And so there's always vulnerabilities around you, or you're not protecting yourself enough. Pay us tons of money and we'll go ahead and try to take care of that for you. You'll never be hacked ever again. Just give us the annual fee, right? And then there's the methodology that we go through, where we focus on education and messaging. This is where we tell our users, well, yes, there are threats readily available out there, but there are ways you can protect yourself if you practice proper digital hygiene, as well as making people feel empowered and coping and learning about all the new things that are going out there, giving them a response that they can easily use with our products and protecting themselves with our trust in our products. And with that, as we talk about trust in our digital life online, I will hand that off to my partner, Orlin, to discuss designing for mobile and the digital journey.
Thanks, Sunny. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. All right, everybody can see my screen okay? All right, so hi again, everyone. So like I mentioned before, I've been at McAfee for 11 years. I started as a visual designer when mobile was just being early adopted. So we had really basic kind of designs for mobile. And then throughout my career here, I transitioned kind of into product design and now am a manager of the team. So I wanted to talk more about kind of designing security for mobile. It's been very challenging in the fact that people don't think that they need to worry about security for their mobile device. But if you really think about it, we carry so much personal information on our mobile devices, right? It's become kind of our wallet. We use Apple Pay or Google Pay. We have our banking apps installed on them. We have social media apps installed on them. We have our email. I can go on and on about the different apps that we actually have on these devices that we have replaced with either our wallet, sometimes even keys to get into the house. And then we also connect them to Wi-Fi when we're out and about. So there's a lot of information that if you were to lose your device, connect to a public Wi-Fi where information can be stolen by scammers. So something to think about when, even though it's a small device and we used to use it just as a phone, now we're using it for everything in our lives. Like it's, attached to our hips. So the part of this is, scams come in all shapes and sizes. You might get a text message, which recently just happened with a mobile provider in the US, Verizon, where you actually got the text message coming from yourself, which, I was actually with a friend when she received it. She was like, I didn't text this to myself. I don't remember texting this to myself. But if you can look at it, sorry, it's a little blurry, but it's a message that says, you just paid your bill and we have a gift for you. And then there's a link that's usually associated with it. And then if you tap on it, you're sharing information with whoever is trying to scam you. One that I have that recently happened, even in my family, you get a message from a random person, whether it's, a pretty girl or a really good looking guy on WhatsApp. They pretend to think that they know who you are. And then they say, oh, sorry, I must have gotten the wrong number, but you seem like a nice person, and try to find ways to connect with you through, whether it's WhatsApp, online dating apps, all different types of ways that they try to get in kind of to connect with you. And then I might get an email, which I got an email from, let's say, Sunny, a friend of mine, said, hey, Orlin, you look at it, it's like, hey, is this you? They even kind of, from the from line, they just have his name. And then when I actually clicked to see more, it was like some random email that had nothing to do with my friend. So guess what? Scam alert. You got to watch out. You got to look at all these details. It can come, like I said, in many shapes and sizes. And thinking about kind of more personal information, like you're shopping at a grocery store, right? You think that's, simple things that you do every day. There's servers that have your profiles. They have they start targeting you with like ads where you remember, like, I just talked about this with my friend Sunny. Why am I getting this weird ad about it? I've heard that many times from friends after conversations. This information gets given to like government financial institutions. And it could be something where it wasn't the grocery store, but you're shopping online from other places. They have your political views, they have your race, they have so much information about you. So a lot of things to kind of think about when you're sharing your information out online. So then you have think of you're about to walk down this creepy alley. What do you normally do? You're like watching your back, right? Like you don't just walk down blindless. Like, so it's like, watch your back. How savvy are you when it comes to spotting out scams? And, you know, how do you protect yourself and identify scams is something that we're trying to educate people when it comes to not even just mobile anymore, but we're shifting to protect all devices. You know, we want to be proactive about it. We're protecting users from their identity, their privacy, and their overall security, because it comes, whether it's a mobile device, online, you know, things you share with stores that you purchased, all different kinds of ways that it can come in. And that's the information that's out there. So I will hand this back to Sunny.
Cool. So as a quick recap, a couple of things that we discussed in this presentation. We wanted you to know about personas and knowing your user. It's fundamental when you're working in the design industry, but specifically within the security industry, you kind of have to understand what you're trying to accomplish here, whether it be teaching individuals technological terms, VPNs, firewalls, PDCs, OACs, brand new wealth of information that they kind of have to be able to understand and figure out, is this something that's valuable for me? And if so, what do I need to do to protect myself here? Design for protecting people's digital journey. That's very important now. It's no longer just about the fact that we are concerned more about our devices having any malware downloaded on there, but also as well as the data that you're putting out there into the digital world and how you're being tracked and exactly what is exactly happening with this information that's going on about you. And then educating and guidance. As you design out your products, you have to be able to figure out ways that will cause people to want to learn about security and why it's important to them and what are certain things that they don't know about that, if brought to their attention, would actually have them want to react to it. These type of things are the things that we have to think about on a daily basis as we continue to think about our digital hygiene, and then how people are utilizing their social medias and their chat applications. What is it that you're not realizing when you're using these things that could leave you in an insecure state or very vulnerable to attacks? And so when we think about that, we have to think, how do we present to you the knowledge in a way that's digestible, as well as something that you would find interesting and possibly want to share it out as well. That'll help you protect not just yourself, but also your family and friends. All right, and with that, we are open for the Q&A session. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you so much. That was such an amazing presentation and very, very informative. We do have a few questions, which is very, very exciting. So Stephen will take over and share his screen of some questions that were asked throughout the presentation.
Yes, so if you haven't got the chance to sort of ask questions or anything that you want to discuss with our guest speaker, please follow the link in the chat to do so. And if you click on the link, you can also see all the questions that are posted. So I'm just going by order about how many likes they got. So the first question, what particularly got you interested in design for security? Was this something new that you learned after you joined McAfee?
Well, then you can go ahead and start with that one.
Yeah, I can take that first. To be honest, I didn't have any particular, like it was actually a manager that I had worked with from a previous job that came over to McAfee and then asked if I wanted to join. So it was actually about the people that got me into working for security. But it's been different than what I was working for before, which was online real estate. So, like realtor.com, we're designing for selling houses. So completely different. But it was the manager that brought me over.
For me, I think being in enough industries, you go from consumer to enterprise software. I spent the last 10 years of my life working in enterprise software with cloud computing. And it just, there's definitely more fun in consumer. You get that instant gratification and instant feedback when you start asking people, why do you like this? What do you like about it? A lot of the times your end user is someone that's more responsive and they'll give you a lot of honest feedback. Working in the enterprise industry, it's more of like your end users are admins. So they don't really care what it looks like. They just care about the functionality and how easily you make it. So when I first joined McAfee, I was like, oh, this is great. I miss this. I miss getting this type of real world feedback. And the longer I stayed working for the company, I started realizing that this is actually adding a lot of value to people's lives. You know, if you use our products, and had I been working with this company ahead of time and Judy would have reached out to me instead of Facebook, I probably could have helped her to receive her data and not trash a laptop or burn a hard drive or do whatever else that she decided to do with it. But since starting with her, there's been so much to learn, and being able to share that knowledge and provide it in a way that's engaging and helping people, I find a lot of value in that.
Sounds good. And the second question goes, what did the researchers do to determine the personas and the mindsets, I guess?
Okay. Margaret is actually one of our researchers, and she's in the audience. Margaret, do you want to answer this, or were you able to work on this study?
Hey, Sunny. I actually didn't work on this one. No, I wish I could have, but I know typically researching personas, it's a big job. It entails a lot of interviews. So actually talking one-on-one, ideally before COVID, right? In the user's own environment and getting to know them, getting to know what's important to them, their pain points and their needs. After so many interviews, you're able to tease out the patterns, right? And see what's important to different groups of users. And then you'd have to validate that, a whole separate round of research to validate and make sure that those categories hold up. And I guess, I mean, there's a whole art to picking the criteria that's important for the domain too, because we've gone through so many rounds of personas at McAfee, and I've only been there 5 years. It's like, oh gosh, more personas. But I think these ones really are compelling because they get at the emotion more than some of the others, which are more behavioral, right? So anxious, and that really captures something important about security users, about people and what they need and how they feel. So you want to connect with them emotionally with the product. It's really important to understand where they're coming from emotionally. So I think this set of personas has really been helpful in designing our software.
Okay, so we have another question which got 5 likes. It's currently the most highly rated question. Are there any particular design patterns that are often used when thinking about privacy conscious design?
Okay, let's see here. If we're talking about design patterns, a lot of the times that when we design a new feature, it has to be a situation where we have to think about it from an end-to-end experience. The user journey is very important because it starts with educating the user, as I mentioned earlier, the messaging that we have there, as well as basically trying to give a reason for the user to want to use the product. So for instance, we have a couple new features coming out within our products called personal data cleanup or online account cleanup. And the explanation on these ones is kind of like if you've ever been to a website such as Spokio and you typed in your information, or if you've ever Google search yourself, let's take it a step back. You ever Google search yourself, you kind of see the top links that have been indexed about you, right? But there are websites like Spokio where if you type in your information, you're going to see additional things about you that you didn't expect anyone to know. And that could be situations like places of former residences, previous phone numbers that you were tied to, schools that you went to previously in the past, as well as expanding it out to the rest of your digital life, even to people that don't use technology. So I ran the scan myself. I was surprised. It showed my last place of residence with my parents' home. It listed their information and it listed, their age. All of these type of things can be used against you, especially when it comes to a way where like, oh, I'm going to reset my password and it's going to ask you certain questions. What high school did you go to? Where was your address or your street that you grew up on? What was the last type of car you drove? This information is actually readily available online without you knowing it. So for us to try to explain this to the end user and saying, you can technically see this as a threat to you because this is an area where you are vulnerable, we can help you by going ahead, unsubscribing all your information and data from these websites, as well as removing it and scrubbing it as much as possible, and making sure that this information isn't readily available anywhere else, including the dark web. that's a big journey that has to walk through the entire gamut of what the end user needs to understand about the product or about the feature, then setting it up in the most easiest way possible, then validating that that product or feature works in that way. And then from there, being able to put them at ease and make them feel secure by having this data removed from them. So if they were to go back and check the website again, they wouldn't be able to see all this information about them readily available. Orlin, is there anything you want to add to that?
Sorry, I lost internet, so I just got back. Yeah, I saw someone was asking, you know, what's the name of the site? I think there's multiple sites out there that you can pay for service to do this. I know from McAfee perspective, we're trying to aggregate those all together into one experience. So something that you can check out that's going to be, I think we already have it on web, and then we're releasing it for mobile too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it'd be great. And again, the chat is asking for the site. So if there's a quick link you can drop down in the chat, that would be nice. But yeah, totally agree on some of the points, including like some sensitive data getting leaked out. And yeah, so another question we got here is, how has the pandemic influenced the perception of online security?
Yeah, but you want to take that first one? Well, I find this link for them so they can search their own data.
Sure. I feel like it's changed a lot where, you know, everyone's connected at home. You know, there's a lot of things that are going on. I honestly feel like it's not really talked about a lot because there's a lot of things that are happening that, to be honest, as a person, I would say that's gotten scammed. I don't think that's something that they like to share a lot with other people, right? So I think that's something more that needs to be educating more people about, like, this is happening a lot more than you think. And then you really don't think about it until it's affected you personally or someone close to you has been affected by it, right? So I can't really speak to like the overall, but I definitely feel like it's even more prominent just because a lot of the stuff that's out there, whether it's on your social media, you know, it's coming through other avenues, through email, you know, text messages. I'm getting a lot of text spams these days that I used to not get, but it's coming through. So they're, you know, definitely scammers are upping their game as much as we're trying to, you know, up the protection for everybody.
Yeah, and I'll follow that one up. I was able to post the link in the chat for those of you that just want to try and test it out yourselves, but there are additional ones that we're working against to protect individuals from their information. But as far as the pandemic goes, you know, a lot of more people came online and a lot of opportunities came online where individuals could be threatened, even if it was in a situation that was unintended. You know, when I remember when schools were going virtual and people began hacking Zoom sessions and posting inappropriate content, or basically doing silly things like joining graduation when we're on Zoom, and you know, you see a guy eating Cheetos in a tank top on his couch in his boxers, watching these graduates go on screen. These are things that no one kind of really planned for or could think of. So for us to try to figure out what these type of security breaches are and how we can work against them to prevent things like this from happening, it really became an interesting avenue for us to focus on. And as we continue to, some people are going back to the office, some aren't, but these solutions still need to be available for the people that aren't, because you don't want to have one of your sessions accidentally hacked and then having people take in your information. We've seen this, at least I've seen this in other companies, where people were joining third-party Slack channels for other companies just because they had an email and a URL. I know specifically friends at Apple that had something like that happen to them, where people were trying to get information. And from there, they had a lot of bad actors that were pretending to be Apple employees saying, oh, I've lost access to my Slack Apple. How do I get in? And, you know, here's my email, and then changing passwords and just getting in there and trying to get as much information as they can. So it's an ongoing challenge that I see continuing persist as we continue to work from home and still have more interactions in our digital life. And that, you know, all we can do is best try to plan for them and prevent them.
Thank you for the answer, and thank you for the link as well. Speaking of COVID, so we have another question. A lot of events are hosted online with little time for a one-to-one interaction. Any advice to how to network or bond with cool people like you guys?
I call this cool, Orlin. Let's see here. I'm always willing to talk, have a chat. You could always reach out to Stephen and Serena to contact us. And I think Orlin always feels the same. Mentorship is a big thing that needs to happen in our industry. I feel that a lot of individuals, while you learn as much as you can from universities and school, there's nothing that beats real life experience and the stories that us grizzled veterans can provide for you. Trying to find as many of these events as you can and just being able to speak with people online is a big advantage already. And then trying to ask to network with them will always help out as well. And if you want, you can always reach out and ask for our LinkedIn profiles. We can connect and then chat if you want to. I'm open to it.
Yeah, I kind of second what Sunny says. I think, I'll take kind of what I did in school is like I sat up in the front of the class in college because then I wanted the teacher to know that I was there, I was paying attention. So being able to just have a conversation with someone, you never know what you'll get into. I've run a hula hoop contest in a store because I saw a couple doing a hula hoop and they were trying to compete with each other. And I said, hey, how about I, be your judge for you? But you just never know what conversation you can spark up with somebody. So just don't be afraid to kind of, network with people and ask them, hey, what do you do? Like, this is what I'm interested in, or finding some common ground. I know there's meetups out there that have design meetups and stuff too.
Yeah, and then if you really want to test your skills, there's always hackathons and competitions. You could look for those, see if you can join them. They're pretty fun. You got about 6 to 8 hours to go ahead and try to plan out a project and make screens, flows, try to bring it to life. If you can, make a prototype and then present it. And those are always good ways to test your minds.
Thank you for the answer. And next up, I think we got a quick question. I sort of lost it. Where do I start with protecting myself online? Sounds like advertising time, but
no, I mean, I feel like that can be answered in multiple ways, right? Like you could even start with kind of, let's take social media for an example. You can kind of look at your social media and think about the things that you're posting about yourself, right? Like who's actually seeing this type of information that you're posting. It's one thing that people are seeing it in terms of people that are your friends, but is your profile public, right? Like what information are you sharing? Because then that's like information that, let's say, Facebook would have, or whatever social media platform that you're posting these things on. One thing that I would say, like social media in terms of for career stuff, like I know that recruiters are looking at people's social media too. So you should be careful what you're posting. Like if you have to second guess of, should I post this or not? Maybe it shouldn't be something that you should be posting. Yeah. Go ahead,
I'm gonna follow that one up with something more tactical. Check your settings on basically everything you have. For the most part, simple things that people, like I mentioned, a lot of people forego convenience, privacy and security for convenience, right? So if you're asked to say, hey, why don't you go ahead and use Grubhub and you can log in with either your Facebook account or your Gmail account or something, or your third-party Twitter account, Who knows how secure some of those APIs could be and what information is being collected and what can be done with it. This goes back to targeted ads that we discussed earlier in the presentation. Two-factor authentication is another good one that you can always enable for more private information, such as like your Gmail, because while emails might not be the most popular form of communication, it still holds a lot of information and data in there, especially if you're using it for cloud storage instead. Social media ones, like Orlin mentioned, there are some interesting features that they put in there just for things like collaboration. But at the same time, it makes you wonder, do people need to know this about me? So for instance, on Instagram, I know that it'll let your friends know when you're currently on Instagram by putting a green dot, within your profile. I don't want my friends knowing when I'm online or on Instagram when I'm supposed to be working or something similar to that, So looking out for those type of settings, making sure you're not being tracked. That's another simple one that you can look at. And then, like I said, sites like Spokeo and everything that you can take a look at, see what information is really known about you out there, and trying to figure out how you can either cleanse it manually or purchase or download a McAfee product and try it out and see if we can clean it up for you.
Yeah,
Shameless
another
plug.
another one that I thought about is like even on your cell phone, like I don't turn on my location, right? So there's a lot of permissions that apps ask for. So like social media might ask for your location or access to your contacts. Those are things that are being shared within that social media platform. So simple things like that can definitely, help with protecting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And speaking of trading off security for convenience, I believe like people do see it. And there's an add-on question from someone asking about how does that trade-off security for convenience impact or translate to design considerations?
I think from some of the research that we've done that I've seen is some people say like, well, I want to use Facebook, so I'm okay with sharing these types of things, right? Like I think it has to do with really the education that we are trying to promote to the user to understand what the risks are to actually have certain things in terms of security. But I think that's still something that's pretty like, what we used to do is like McAfee was a set it and forget it, right? Like, oh, they'll just let me know when I have a virus on my computer. But now that's shifting and changing because it's more than just viruses, right? It's like we talked about identity, privacy. So the way we're trying to talk about, like Sunny and I were mentioning earlier, is educate users why these things are important and how they affect them, right? Like the example that I gave is you go to a coffee shop and you use their public Wi-Fi. If you're going to use their public Wi-Fi, you want to consider using VPN. And actually checking the public Wi-Fi is associated, let's say, with that establishment that you're at, and that it's not a hacker sitting right next to you pretending and spoofing that public Wi-Fi for you to connect, and then they can see everything that you're doing on your computer. So
yeah, that's a good one. And as we mentioned about, I'll use the simple one again, where we use like our social media logins in order to gain access to or sign up for other services. That's a biggie, because then when you actually read some of the things, it's kind of like, we want access to do this, this, and this, and to find information about you. And most people are like, yeah, okay, sure. You're just trying to figure out what type of food I like, if I'm going to be ordering from like DoorDash or something, or you're trying to figure out where my location is at. Just let me order my food real quick, right? But then you don't realize that some of that data can be sold off to third parties, and they're just kind of like, oh, we heard you like Thai food. Would you like to try these restaurants in your location? And you're like, how did you even know that? So it's these type of things where we have to design for, in a sense of like, the red flags to us, especially if we consider doing those type of interactions within our products. Are we going to allow you to sign into a McAfee product using your email account? We have to weigh out the pros and cons in that. What information can possibly be gathered versus what will you allow us to do? And so it's those type of things that we have to think about, as well as weighing out the costs versus convenience for the end user.
yeah, it's taking a proactive approach, right? Because by the time you've been scammed or you've had your data stolen, identity, it's a lot harder to really get that back. So how do you proactively protect yourself on these types of things for yourself?
Mm-hmm. Sounds awesome. And I believe we touched briefly a bit about internships and mentorship programs before. So yeah, I believe for Waterloo people, a big major issue is like, does McAfee have the incoming design internships? I'm interested in designing for security and would love to apply, yay. and probably elaborate a bit more on mentorship and how does the experience look like, because personally it's amazing.
We are always open to getting new interns. Stephen, you know that, you went through the program as well. We do have open times. Feel free to reach out to us when we come available asking for interns. We know we just got a few on recently. Stephen, you offset, or you sunsetted recently as well too. So it's a rotating door, but it's good for you guys to get the education, talk to us. Within the CXT department here at McAfee, we try our best to try to mentor designers as well. I'm in charge of onboarding, so I get to teach you all about the products, and then we have workshops and design reviews. So definitely reach out to us, and then we'll let you know when we have these available opportunities.
Yeah, and I think you can reach out to Serena and Steven too, right? Like they have connections here that I'm sure they'll happy to pass along to any of the managers as we're hiring for. And we do internships throughout the entire year, so there's not specific time to.
And I believe McAfee also post their postings on Waterloo Works. So if any Waterloo people is curious, watch out for that one. And that's where I got the opportunity to get into McAfee and know all these amazing people.
Yeah, the team culture is really awesome, and the people so far have been really amazing. So if you're interested, definitely check McAfee careers out.
Didn't catch the source. Oh, Waterloo Works. I might speak it fast, but that is the job application platform of University of Waterloo. No worries. We have a few leftovers questions, and one is, how does McAfee keep itself relevant, and do you want to reinvent your brand or interface over time?
Yeah, that's a good one. McAfee is one of the older companies. We've been around for a while here. Staying fresh and relevant is basically trying to keep up with times in terms of what are the new threats that are coming out, and then being able to understand how do we solve for those threats and what can we do to modify our product to protect individuals over that threats. And sometimes that is an entire overhaul of our products. And that could just be from a rebranding or an interface refresh. We're currently in the middle of something like that right now, where we're working to see what elements people want out of our products, and then how do we design around those, with our fantastic research team being able to help us make those decisions, as well as other additional considerations like accessibility. One of the things that Margaret's been working on and trying to make our products readily available for those with disabilities. So it's always a constant, keep your eye out about what's coming up next and plan for it and design for it.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, there's a whole nother team within McAfee that does like market research to see what the trends are within the security space, what our competitors are doing. So a lot of competitive analysis on that. And I would say like that's more of like a high level just in terms of a company perspective. But then from a design perspective, we kind of have to take that and decipher that and then work with our UX research team to really understand some of that information that they're proposing, and really get into the nitty gritty of like, is this something that users actually want, and really understanding that and then turning that into a product experience. So like, Margaret's on the team, on the call here. What I've been saying lately is the UX part is like the wrapper of it all. You don't just do UX on the designs and the flows that you've already come up with, but you want to get into like how the personas that Sunny was presenting, like really understanding the user and their pain points and figure out ways to solve it. So we're trying to prioritize those things for our users instead of just like, here's a design that we want to do and then just test that. It's actually a whole entire kind of experience across, starting from research all the way down to the designs, back to research again to validate.
Thank you so much for your insightful answers. And I think we're going to wrap it up here. Again, thank you so much, Sunny and Orlin, for both coming. I think we all learned a lot. Thank you so much for Margaret doing a cameo and answering part of the questions as well. Like always, this this will be recorded and it will be posted on YouTube. Stephen will provide the link of our channel where you can see it. And we're so excited to have you join this talk today. I think that was it. Is there anything else, Stephen and Vedant, that you wanted to cover as well before we hop off the call? Okay. Sounds great. Yeah, if you have any questions too, feel free to reach out to UWUX on Instagram. And if you have any more questions, relay them to us, and Stephen and I will go and ask Sunny and Orlin, and we will get the answer for you guys. But until next time, stay tuned for our next event coming up.
Thank you, everyone, for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.